I am organized, honestly. I am organized. I think I'm organized. Anyway, thank you, Kuhn Point, for the introduction. I tried to get out of moderating this panel session because, as our MC said, it's kind of an interesting topic to bring up, especially at an Internet Exchange Point and Peering Forum meeting. And, you know, especially when I was helping the program committee put this together, it was also, well, what on earth do we even mean by the question? So what I'm going to try and do with our 4 panel members who are sitting here and with Romain, who's on the screen behind me, is explore really what the question means and what the answers might even be. And so to set the scene, Romain has put together a few slides. Romain, if you could do that presentation now, please. We'll cover those few slides really to try and create some talking points. And then we'll jump into the panel discussion itself, and the panel members can introduce themselves and their background and how they're contributing to this. So anyway, I'll give the floor to Romain first. Thanks, Romain.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for having me. Sorry I couldn't make it to Bangkok, but I'm pretty excited to do that. So yes, I presented a few slides to bring a bit of context and try to answer that question, do IXP make the internet faster? So brief introduction, I think I was already introduced, so maybe I don't really need this. I'm at IAG Research Laboratory for the past 10 years or so, and I'm doing mainly internet measurements, so collecting data, trying to understand how the internet evolved, where it's broken, and recently I've been doing a lot of BGP and RPKI. So going to the question, I think that's a simple question that could be very hard to answer. And what I'd like to do is try to split this in two. First is, what do we mean by IXPs? And then the second one is faster internet. Also, we have to define what we mean by fast. So as I think most of people knows here, there's different types of IXP. So we have to be clear about what IXP are we talking about. And I think there could be a lot of differences in the IXPs, and one could be simply the model, the organization, how they operate. There is some IXPs that are for profit and commercial. DKIX is a prime example here. Some that are community-based. I think BPF2026 is one of those. It's non-profit. And some that are managed mainly by government. So those are completely different. They will have also different goals and different scopes. So usually the community-based are for the community. So the scope is more constrained. It's usually local, like regional or national. And some of the large commercial ones might be more international, trying to gather a lot of members. And of course, there could be a lot more differences. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I guess the keynote was about some of the like techniques for the peering fabric, and you can imagine like different techniques, etc. We have, so I haven't done like a lot of measurements on IXPs, but I will present a few results from studies we've done. With one of my colleagues at IAG, we had this study where we look at the footprint of IXPs and who using them. And we have that figure in the paper where we measure, so we defined a metric called regionality that range from 0 to 1. 0 means it's not regional at all. This is like very international. And 1 means that all the network that we see are using more actively the IXP are in the same country as the IXP. So you can see from that distribution that we have two profiles. IXP are usually very local. which I think was intended from the beginning, like it's typical IXP we think of. And but the second pattern is really like the complete opposite, where the IXP is very international. And to give a few examples, we can dig into those results. So here on the x-axis, we have the same regionality measure. And on the y-axis is, I don't really have time to explain the detail, but it's mainly like ASCs that are relying the most on those IXP. Those AS could be member of the IXP or not. It could be the customer of a member, for example. And I think what that figure shows is that you can see that the international IXPs, like DKIX, are very large. They usually have a lot of a very large outreach. And the local one are usually a bit smaller, which I think makes sense. And I think what is interesting in that figure too is that you can see that there's a few local ones that are very large. So this IXBR Sao Paulo is probably one of the largest IXP in the world. And we measure it to be very local because it really serves a lot of the network in Brazil. And I wanted to give a bit more views on what we have about Thailand. And this figure was, so this is a dashboard we developed, and that was supported. I don't have an acknowledgement slide, so that was supported by the APNIC Foundation. Thank you a lot for that. And in this figure, we show where the Thai networks in which IXP they are appearing. So, and of course, you can see that many of them are appearing in Thailand. So BPF2026 will be like the top one here. You see many Thai network there. And then you can see that some of those members are also in Thailand IX or BBX Thailand. And I think those are like the local IXP that serve the region, which is really nice. But we can see example also like Equinix Singapore, where there is quite a few Thai network that are there, which I think shows a bit more that picture of international IXPs, because I don't think they go to Singapore to reach Singaporean. As we all know, like Singapore is a nice hub in the Southeast Asia, so that's another way of peering, I think, that shows pretty well in that picture too. Okay, so that's the type of IXPs. And now the next thing I'd like to go into is what do we mean by faster? So if you look at textbooks, usually the benefits we see of IXP there in the textbook is like that. There is this figure that shows there is some ISP that want to reach content, and it has to, traditionally it used to have to go through transit and maybe multiple transit to reach the content. But now using IXP and peering, we have a direct connection, so it should make the latency and throughput better. Which is still true, but I think now the ecosystem have evolved so much that that's one of the aspects, but not the only one. And I think the IXPs have helped a lot to for the internet ecosystem to evolve very quickly. And one way of saying that things goes faster with IXP is simply peering. It's now with like with an IXP that have a route server, it's very fast, very quick to peer with many networks. You just peer with the route servers, and virtually you are like peering with so many different networks. That's another way to see give a definition of fast here. Another one is that I think IXP increase the density of peering quite a lot, and this could be very important for example, recovery and resilience. So you could see the IXP as it increased the density of peering locally. It could be can be seen as a way to have faster recovery. like it's easier to find like route around outages and link failure and things like that. And the last one I want to mention, I have another slide on this, is I think also IXPs they help to adopt some of the latest technology or like security features a bit faster. And the example I'd like to give here is RPKI and route origin validation. So for an IXP to implement route origin validation, it's mainly implementing route origin validation on the route server, and then all the members can benefit from that. And I took that timeline from one of the paper on RPKI that shows when things started to be deployed, when ROV started to be deployed on the internet, the line simply shows like ASIDs that start to filter invalid. So you can see that things have started around 2019, 2020, 2021. And on top, I've put the IXPs that are starting doing the ROV. And on bottom, I put a few of the large transit network that started doing ROV. And you can see that most of the major IXPs, so for example, France IX started in 2018. Just after there was M6, DKIX, PKNX, IXBR, links, all the links IXPs have implemented ROV by that time. So around 2020 is like most of the major, a lot of the major IXPs have deployed ROV, which is really nice, and it was really fast, I think. Whereas for transit network, it took a lot of time because they have to, well, they have a much larger infrastructure. There's like many routers they're gonna have to update, and there is a lot of work. So it's a lot slower to do. And actually, what you don't see in that figure is like, so AT&T was a bit early in the game, but then like Telia, NTT, this is when really things started. And after that, there was like Google and a lot of other big networks that followed. So I think that's another way to think of how fast IXPs are to help the internet to evolve. And so that was the ROV's story. And somehow this might repeat again. It's a bit early to say, but SPIE is coming. And actually the first report of a network on IXP filtering SPIE was an IXP. So they might be following pretty quickly too. That's more or less all I wanted to present, but that was like my two main takeaways on that question, trying to divide this in two. And they are, of course, interconnected. Like, so what is fast for local IXP and what is fast for an international IXP, that those things might be different because, of course, like latency for these very large international IXPs, I mean, Frankfurt is not in the center of the planet Earth. So if everyone appears in Frankfurt, that's gonna increase latency for everyone. So I think those two things have to be taken into account together. That's it for me, Philippe.
All right, thank you, Romain. So that was very interesting overview of what we're facing. So I think now you start seeing what the challenge could be with trying to do this as a panel discussion, because who should be on the panel? Whose points of view do we want to listen to? And I think probably each one of you in the room will have a probably completely different opinion as well. So what I want to try and do, and Romain is going to stay with us, please, if you would, because I'm going to ask your opinion as well. So you can't quite escape the whole thing just by not being with us here in person.
I'm here. I'm here for. I can stay longer even if you want.
So really, to start this off, so I mean, the typical way. I've got 5 questions here, which the panel members are aware of, but I don't know where we're going to go with any of them because it depends what other interesting topics will come up. Can we get the slide with the questions so that I don't have to read them out? There are the slides. Right, okay, so in theory, so these are the panel members, as Koen Point introduced. So Romain with IRJ Research Laboratory introduced himself and did the presentation. Marc was our keynote speaker just before the break, working with Airbus and SPIE ICS. We've got Aftab Siddiqui, second from the end, who is APNIC Foundation. Viraphan at the end, Asian Institute of Technology, and then we've got Htwe with NexGeNet, who will be talking really from the ISP perspective. So we've tried to mix it up a little bit. And really the first question, and we'll let the panel members introduce themselves as well, is really, I need more hands. This one. So it's back to the panel topic. And this is really, do IXPs make the internet faster? So if you would just say from your perspective, sitting here today on your day-to-day use of the internet, and those of you who are running networks, what you're connected to, those of you who are helping other networks, what you generally feel, do IXPs make the internet faster? I don't know who wants to start. Marc?
Hello again. Salut Romain. Hello. We worked together more than 6 years, and I was in a IJ lab with him for a very good period in my life. And quicker introduction says Airbus and SPIE ICS, and so because I'm actually working in Toulouse back for Airbus build plane, but I have a massive network as well, tens of thousands of devices around the world, and then they need to get connected. But this is not really internet. They're using internet for the public internet. I think it's a maybe key important point here. When we talk about internet, there's also the public internet, the IPv4, 6 we do share together. And there's some very specific into that industry. We have to work together. And it's not the case for other industries at this point, because we have separated networks, but it works because we actually work all together to maintain these public IP spaces. Key point here. And then internet exchange is the glue to interconnect those networks. It's the public aspect, that's the peering part, very, very important. Then does it make it faster? I would say definitively yes. For the public internet, that's the unique place, that's a unique glue for this. The rest is called private peering, and not as opposite in some aspect. Well, and yeah, it has a lot to do with locality, territories, and community of human beings sharing the same space. This is the key things who really help to get the internet public faster, but also for growing, not the fact that the packet's going faster to one computer to another. It's just because of growing for human beings, for everyone, publicly, to maintain the good. This is the faster things we have to do, just to get more free and freedom out of it. Not sovereignty, but freedom. That's my key point.
Okay, Tan, if you would, just from your perspective at NexGen.
Yes, I'm the cross-border, I have a cross-border connectivity in Thailand and Myanmar, and I'm the international gateway provider from Myanmar. And the according to the ISP, I first attended to the beginners event in 2023, and I started learning about the IAs. Yes, my the back weight is I have to connect to the IAs because I have to rely on the IP transit provider. Also, my app strength is entity, IGC, and then at the meanwhile, I need the content first to our end user. So that is the reason I stay connect with the IAs. First, I connect to the IAs. My team did understand about how to utilize the IAs traffic. So I explained about the IAs is like the international hotel. So we are the we can rent the room like the board, and then we can be at the lobby. So we can lobby is like the route server. So also that we can do the connecting room like the bilateral peering. So they understand about the how to start our IX process, and then we aggressively peer with the content provider, bilateral peer, and then now already the 3 years already, and then our peering rent is about to the 1 to 3 in Myanmar already. So yeah, I agree. IXP is the first for the internet, not only the first, but also my internet is smarter right now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Aftab, from your vast experience over the recent years, what do you reckon?
Yes, thank you. Before I go into the answering that question, I just want to remind everyone in the audience, I have 2 gifts for those who are gonna ask 2 interesting questions. So just be attentive. So the question is whether IXPs make a difference. Oversimplified answer is yes, but it depends where you are. So if I am, as a resident of Australia, if you ask me that question, the answer is absolutely yes, it makes a huge difference. For an island nation, the content is all hosted in Australia, most of the content hosted in Australia, it makes a huge difference. But if you ask me, who established the very first IXPs in Pakistan back in 2008 and 9, the answer would be, no, it doesn't matter. Because it depends where the content is. For the case of Pakistan, majority of the content is hosted outside the country. So they have to rely heavily on the transit. So having an IXP doesn't make much difference. Things are changing at slow progress, content is moving inward, but it depends. Ultimately, yes, it helps a lot. But for a case of Thailand or Southeast Asia, it definitely makes a lot of difference. Transit versus, I mean, we all know about the transit versus peering cost. It's always cheaper to peer rather than transit. So it makes a lot of difference, but it depends upon where the content is hosted. If Netflix for some reason decide to move all their content to North America or East or West Coast, whatever, having a functional IX is not going to make a difference. It depends upon where the content is, but thankfully so, most of the content is hosted locally in many cases. Another research we did along with IIJ Labs and in my previous lab at ISOC Pulse, that the content locality, where the content is, luckily for the Southeast Asia, most of the content is hosted locally, majority of the content. So yes, so again, as I said, oversimplified answer, yes, it helps.
Oversimplified answers are good because we're going to dig into this a little bit more. So Viraphan, just your impressions, Asian Institute of Technology.
Yes, from the user perspective, academic users, we noticed that the IXP have extracted a lot of traffics instead of going to the transit. And also latency seems to be faster than going through the transit. So, for example, last maybe when APNIC hosting the Google content, we ping the DNS. We get only 2 milliseconds before. If we going before that, we have about 30 milliseconds. We notice a little bit faster than before.
Thanks, Viraphan. And Romain, not from your research perspective, but just in your day-to-day usage at IIJ research labs, I mean, do you feel exchange points make your internet experience better, faster?
Well, I guess I will echo a bit what Aftab said. Being in Tokyo, there is like a few very large IXPs here also, and a lot of the content providers are right here in Tokyo. So of course it helps a lot to have that access. That's for sure, yeah.
Okay, so the next one, and the panel members already hinted at some of this. What does faster mean? Because if you ask an end user what faster is, Aftab mentioned Netflix. They want to see the Netflix without any interruptions. So that's faster for the end user. A researcher like Romain, or if I put my previous life on as a physicist, faster for me was getting access to data sets and so on somewhere else on the planet. Or if I put my route views hat on, we want to run archives in different parts of the world, shifting terabytes of data all over the place. And then what about an internet service provider? What's their perspective of faster? So what does faster actually mean? Maybe, again, we'll go around the 5 panel members, just quick answers. I would say, let's start with you, Romain. So faster for you, what does that really mean as a researcher? So researcher especially.
Okay, I think this is the trickiest one, because fast is, we can measure latency, for example. Yes, I can check how far I am to DNS servers or Netflix and things like that. I could measure instantaneous throughput to Netflix caches or server. But there's a lot of things that will define the quality of the internet. So a stream, for example, like jitter will come into in the equation. So it's more about the quality of the link sometime rather than a number I can get at one instant in time. And there is also like a lot of congestion. So it depends the time of the day. When I do my measurement at 3 a.m. in the morning, they're usually pretty good. But there is a time of the day when like all users are online and downloading a lot of things. Things might be a bit more sketchy. So I think in the case of IXPs, the question here is, there's some question about how to like manage that quality, especially for multilateral peering, where there's like, I don't know, might get a bit more technical. But for me, yeah, the fast is, there's many metrics to check. And you mentioned route views. I think we have like good infrastructure to measure routing. But I don't think we have very good tool to measure. I mean, we have tools to measure how fast goes the internet, but not in the long term, you know, like things that over the long term. So it's a bit hard to answer this question.
Yeah. So, okay, well, maybe Viraphan can help. So when we talk about internet is fast, what does it mean for AIT?
Well, latency. The fastest, if I have a lower latency, that is a fast for sure. So we noticed that one with the IXP clearly, especially DNS.
So having DNS, well, I was going to say on campus, but not on campus, but at least in the same city as you're based makes a big difference.
Yes.
Because we see a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to use Google DNS, and Google DNS is somewhere else in the region. How does that contribute to fast or not?
Well, not only the people, the user inside the AT is using actually AT DNS, or which is locally, which is fast, or for example, secondary or thirdly as Google or other DNS provider. So most of DNS that we use in AT is located in the IX.
Aftab, your thoughts about fast? You hinted at Netflix. Maybe expand on that a little bit.
Yes, as someone who has a kid who play a lot of games, fast internet means everything to them. They don't care what is latency. They don't care how much bandwidth I have. They just need, because all the games, I did not know that, I don't play games, that they provide you a latency counter. And he always points it out that why this number is high. And then I had to explain everything to him that why it is high, because the game you are playing is connecting you to a server which is not in Australia. Of course it's going to be high. He said, can you change that? And I said, I wish I could lay a cable and change the speed of light. Beyond that, I can't do anything. So for the end user, and that I think my son represents a lot of end users, they don't care how the traffic is moving, how it is reaching the end destination. What they all care about is how they are connecting. I mean, Netflix is the ideal example. The moment you move your, for example, you can select, you're not playing anything, you're just moving your cursor from one movie to another movie, and it starts playing a trailer behind it. And if you're moving and it doesn't start playing the trailer, you will move on. That's what I do. I know a lot about internet, and that's still my behavior, right? For me, I mean, at that point, I don't care what is happening at the back end, where is the content hosted. If I'm just moving, if I don't see the trailer within 5 seconds or 2 seconds, I'll just move on. So everybody has a different meaning of faster. But yes, ultimately down the, if you look at under the hood, everything is dependent on where the content is, and then it changes based on the latency you are reaching. Of course, how much capacity you have at home or the ISP, your service provider you're using, it also matters. But I think in this day and age, everybody has a good connectivity and a good bandwidth to their service provider. So that has resolved in many ways. In the past, I mean, we all know, people of certain age, we know that 1 Mbps link used to be a lot. Now people are not happy with 1 gig. So that word does not make any sense anymore. If you are accessing something which is very far away from your where you are located, a 10 gig pipe to your service provider is not going to change anything. So the faster has a very different definition. ISPs struggle when they say fast internet, and then they have to put a disclaimer underneath that what is fast, because then regulator can catch them as well. So the faster is a very relative term. But I think we all have learned from the technology point of view that lower latency most likely gives you a faster access to the internet.
Tan, your perspective from an ISP, what's fast? What does fast mean for you, and how does the exchange point help?
Yeah, I'm the regional provider, and my downstream customer are the ISP. So nowadays, the faster is not only the bandwidth, so also the connectivity between content and user. So before connecting to the IaaS, I have a lot of tickets from the downstream customer for this game. This latency is very high. The UQ is loading. So I try to reduce the peering with a lot of content, and then also the having to the our local IaaS, MMIaaS, having a lot to my gaming experience. So now, yeah, mostly 0 ticket for the loading time and then faster internet. So now I would like to mention is faster is not only the connectivity, but also the user experience, better user experience. If the user is they got the better experience, they will not complain about the faster.
Marc, your perspective of faster. I mean, we're hearing so far that it's the user's perception of what the internet is doing rather than out-and-out bandwidth. Do you agree?
Yeah, then we are the users. Machine to machine have some consideration and so, but we are the users and so. But to go back to some of the different aspects that all the panelists said, and so I want to give some example of, because faster meaning also growing economically faster, some aspect, because everything's go through internet for this. And there is a special reason is Amsterdam lot of connectivity, concentration of fibers and data centers historically. What happened there? We know there is AM6, 30 years old and so. But do you know there is another internet exchange there with 1.3, 1.4 terabits traffic live already? Free. It's called SPIE. Then he combined these regions, very something specific. The content, the fiber, everything, concentration of the infrastructure is there. Then in terms of economical growth, you look into SPIE-IX, is out of the radar, but is 484 port already connected. Then economically, things can grow when there is an infrastructure, then when is everything, and it go faster for the end users. It go faster for all the operator connected because the principle of internet exchange is obviously direct public peering. It bring more robustness, it bring lower traffic costs, and so on, lower latency, everything speed up there.
All right, thank you. So I think have we come to a conclusion about faster? I mean, we possibly have, or at least we've narrowed down a little bit. It's the end user perspective. I think, well, I'm probably an outlier because my perspective of faster is I'm sitting in an airplane somewhere and when they upgrade the satellite from geostationary at very slow to geostationary slightly less slow, or what's Starlink and all the rest appearing, that's probably better. Or when I'm visiting my mother in rural Scotland with a 2 megabits internet, that reminds me of the 1990s almost. So I think some of us who are really deep in internet infrastructure have a completely different idea from what the end user experience generally is. And I think it's got to kind of almost become really clear. It's, if the content is at or close to the exchange point has a very big role, whatever the exchange point actually is, which really brings me to the next question, which is, what is the exchange point? I mean, Marc has already started to hint on this, because we've got the local IXs, which are very much just to serve the local community. We've got regionals, which are local, but they're attracting operators from, you know, the whole regions of countries round about. And then we have the internationals, which, you know, Romain pointed out in his introductory, you know, the DKIXs, the Lynxes, the AM6s of the world, where people are going all the way around the world to get to their infrastructure. So maybe, Marc, we go back to you, and you can carry on a little bit more about the different types of IXs and how they would help with making things faster. You know, the local versus, I mean, I think, was it, one of the panel members said, well, you know, if you connect to DKIX, does it actually, from sitting here in Frankfurt, does it actually make anything faster, or is there some other business model that's being addressed there? Anyway, Marc.
That's good you mentioned DKIX in some aspect, because they try to be everywhere, not only in Frankfurt. And I'm also very, very glad that BPF2026 invited me to be here, because the model of BPF2026 is unique and need to be preserved. It has to be neutral, coming up from, long story short, bringing up around the community. And then we're talking by neutral, doesn't mean that they has to grow everywhere for everything, but at least to maintain on a certain territory and some locality and specifics. We're talking about people working all together, and so that's why I think it grows faster in all dimensions that we need. Yeah, we can replace with big switches, a lot of more fibers in around the city to connect whatever all pop point of presence is for people to be connected there, with remote peering in some aspect and so, but it has to be there for the locality, for people around it with more content and more users.
So, and if I look from the ISP perspective, Tan, you've connected to BPF2026. What's your motivation for which exchange point you choose out of all the three possibilities that we have? Why BPF2026 or a local exchange point rather than some of the other offerings that are available? You could go to an international exchange and get remote peering, for example. So what was your motivation to go for the different ones?
Yeah, I am the members of regional local MMIs and also the members of DSIAs, also the members of beginners. So beginners is like the mix, like the international and the local. Not only the local, also the regional IAs. Because I'm from Myanmar, also the same members from Laos and the other countries. So the regional IAs is the best for connectivity between different countries. So I would like to say that the beginners, not only the local IAs, also they mix it with the international and the regional, and also the very good to connect with the, also the, some of my traffic in beginners is from Singapore. Yeah, Singapore content is coming from beginners traffic. So I really want to do for the all of the other member who is not being the member currently also should join to the beginners as the member. Okay.
So it's really choices made based on where the content is that you're looking for. After your perspective again, you know, from your history, Internet Society, now with the foundation, and then back to your Pakistan days, I mean, the different types of exchange points and how that's relevant really for a lot of this discussion.
Yes, so there are two, one point I want to highlight that about the types of IXPs. We, 2 years back, when I was still at ISOC, we did a joint study. Paul is sitting here. Paul, raise your hand. We did a joint study trying to codify the types of IXPs are there, whether it's a community-driven IXP, commercial IXP, government supported or run IXPs, or different. So there are multiple categories and how you can define those categories, and we try to independently put all the major IXPs in that bucket for the people or for the community to understand what is the definition of a commercial IXP, what is the definition of a community-driven IXP. Every type of IXP has a place in this ecosystem. So we cannot say that one type of IXP is good, other type is bad. So that is one thing. I just, if you ever wants to read something very interesting and not overly complicated, please do read that report. That was quite interesting work, thanks to most of the work done by Paul anyway. So that is one. The number two, if I am so what to select? Just going back, when I started my career, the definition of the IXP was keeping local traffic local. That was the basic idea. Now the controversial part is, I think that idea is gone. It's the local content is, it's hard to define what is local now, right? So, because now it depends upon the locality of the content, not what type of content it is. A Thai content could be hosted in East Coast AWS. It is Thai language accessed by people in Thailand only, but somehow whoever the content owner was decided to host it in East Coast in AWS. That local content is not local anymore. So the keeping the local content local definition is very abstract now. The definition of locality has become very difficult to address. And if I am if I am in a commercial operator, and if there are multiple IXPs in my country or economy I'm working in, I will select on the basis of who's already there. And it also creates a problem of chicken and egg. If a new IXP comes in and you see there are not many players there, you're not going to connect. It means that IXP is not going to grow. And that's how a lot of commercial IXPs grow very well, because they have a team and all that. Beacon X with a very small team and a very small budget. An IXP like this has to grow organically. So that's why it takes time for them to grow. Commercial IXPs grow faster, so you ultimately connect to them. Now going back to Australia, the ultimate IXP we have is run by the Internet Australia without mixing ISOC AU versus Internet.
Internet
IX, yeah, Internet Association of Australia. So that is, they are the biggest one, but some content is not there. So I have to connect with at least one of the other commercial IXP, whether it's a Connex or the Megaport. And this is one of the very basic reason we wanted to find the details about all the regional IXPs when we started working with Romain and his team at IIJ Labs. So please go look at the tool he was showing. It will show you how many non-country-based operators are connected to your IXP. And that makes your IXP all of a sudden a regional IXP. So if you go to Singapore IX, SIG IX, you'll see there are more non-Singapore networks on the SIG IX or Econex Singapore than the local ones. So it becomes a regional IXP. Same is the case with BPF2026 here. You'll see more. So it's like the concept of a regional IXP is growing. So ultimately it becomes more lucrative for a commercial operator to go and join that one because I'm getting a lot of regional content locally. So the definition has changed. So if you say, what is an IXP? I mean, I don't know the definition now, right? So the basic definition of keeping local traffic local, I think it's gone. So maybe by the end of this session, we should come up with a new definition.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask the question, because exactly as you said, we started off in the 90s keeping local traffic local, but what on earth is local content, local traffic anymore? And so on. So, thank you for that insight, Aftab. Viraphan, your view, when you talk about exchange points, or when AIT looks at exchange points, same question I asked Tan, how do you make choices? AIT, right, we need to go to an exchange point, but what is it and why are you doing that?
Mostly it's cost. The cost is actually we don't care if IXP is local, but it should be local. But if IXP is far away or whatever in place, if the content can be get from the IXP at the far away, it's okay. Also, the cost is lower, so we'll do that one. So AIT now is transit is very low transit. Actually, AIT does not pay for any internet connections now. Most of the internet connection is used by the dormitory, which they are paid for that ones already. So it is a cost. Yeah.
Cost is important. So Romain, do you have quickly some input? I mean, Aftab has mentioned the research work and so on, but just local, regional, international, what really an exchange point is these days. Are you able to answer the question?
Not really. Well, I'm like Aftab, I'm a bit lost of what is an IXP now. And actually, I wish we have a better terminology, because I think now, for some of them, for the international one, like remote peering and everything, to me, it's even closer to a transit network than a local IXP. So I wish we have a terminology, a different terms for those. But what I found very interesting with the last comment, the cost, which I think really bring that whole question together. Can we get cheap and fast internet at the same time? Like you could get, you could bring down the cost doing remote peering, for example, but then you won't get that fast anymore. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I agree with all that was said. I don't have much to add. I see we don't have that much time left. So.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move to the fourth question. And there was a comment at the top, content is king. I saw going, I don't know where that came from, but anyway, but absolutely. It seems to be content is the number one, and Viraphan has mentioned cost. So, content providers view the world as delivering content to their eyeballs with low latency and high quality. Do content providers care about the exchange points? There's the example of Google transitioning from exchange points to the verified peering providers. So how do exchange points fit into this? And if that transition is being followed by other content providers, does it make the internet faster, or are they doing this now because cost is involved, or is there something else? Romain, how about you start with that question?
Sure. I'm still trying to figure out why Google did that change, so not entirely sure. But one thing is for sure is that they are in a very particular situation right now, and they are connected to many networks. Maybe they have the privilege of being able to do that transition. One thing that is sure is that for new player, new content provider, that wouldn't be easy to do. So I think that even though they had this change in their policy, I do think that the IXP still fit in that view of they could deliver content to eyeballs. Like I don't think it changed much to me. Like it's just like Google. I know there's a few that follow on what they're doing. Like Meta is also, well, I guess they're still at IXP, but do the policy a bit different. They're appearing a bit differently. To me, I hope it's not gonna change much. It's just they are in a very specific position and they are able to do that. Now it maybe also tell us that probably they think that the internet is now fast enough for the application and that extra millisecond is not needed for them. I'm not sure. Again, as I said at the beginning, I'm still trying to figure out why they made that change. And it will be interesting to see in the future how it's going to impact performance to the application and even future change in their peering policy. Might change again, who knows? Thank you.
Okay. Viraphan, what do you think? You mentioned cost, that you basically don't have to pay much for anything. But if you found that content wasn't at the exchange point, you had to go somewhere else for it, because I mean most AIT users, I presume, are looking for content. What happens?
Sorry about that. The content, I mean, that I can fetch it from the remote IXPs, the content that mostly Google, Netflix, something like that. So this kind of content doesn't care much about the latency. Yes, so that content, I mean, that depend on the cost. For the, can I have the last question? I don't remember the last questions. Let's see.
Well, it's really how do exchange points fit into, I mean, you connect to BPF2026 because it gives you access to a lot of content. Mm-hmm. But, you know, content providers are focused on delivering the content to their end users, and exchange points and you are just part of the path to it. I mean, if that model changes, what do you think? I mean, you'd have to still find ways of making sure your end users get access to the content they need.
There's some of the academic content, of course, downloading satellite image from many places. Normally this will use a transit anyway. So, yeah.
I mean, and so moving on to Aftab, how do you feel the exchange points fit into the worldview of delivering content?
So let's remove Google from the equation, right? They spend almost a year explaining to the community why they made that decision. I agree with some of them, but as Romain, I'm not convinced with the other points they mentioned. But anyway, it's a commercial entity made a decision based on whatever they believe is the right points. But apart from Google, if I am starting a content delivery network or any network which has content to offer to the eyeballs, the best way for me to go is connect on the IXP. Right? Easiest, cheapest, I again give you an example of Australia is to get a 10 gig connection on the IXP, it costs $350 a month. Again, being an island nation, a very big island, but still an island, the transit cost is still very, very high. It's around $4 to $5 a meg in Australia. So if you compare it with the IX pairing or the port I get is like 10 gig for $350, few cents versus per meg versus $4 to $5 a meg. That's a huge difference if I'm a commercial operator. And if a lot of my traffic is uplink, if I'm a content provider, the best way for me to go about is go to all the IXPs in the country. It makes a lot of sense. But if I move that context towards North America, where the transit has dropped to few cents a meg, then should I just not go to IXPs? Just stay with a couple of transit providers and then live with that? Because those transit providers are ultimately connected to multiple IXPs. So that equation changes where you are. For us in Asia Pacific, that equation is still very much you go to IXP. That is the fastest. So one point Romain mentioned that in the previous life, we always used to say fast, cheap, reliable, pick two. That was the thing. Now actually you can pick all three. You can have fast access, you can have reliable access, and you can cheap access just because of the IXPs. If you remove IXPs from the equation, then all of a sudden you are back to pick two, at least in our region where the transit cost is still expensive. But for example, if the transit versus IXP is still, let's say, same price, $1 a meg and $1 a meg, hypothetically, you still have to build the reliability. Rather than going to multiple transit providers, why can't you just go to one IXP or two IXPs? Gives you more reliabilities versus just having one transit provider. So for our region, yes, IXPs play a major role. For how long they can keep on doing that, that is something we can discuss. I think I'll be retired by that time, hopefully. But by the time the transit costs drop to under a meg, we are not there yet. But beyond that, yes, without IXPs, the region cannot function properly. We have to rely on the IXPs.
And so, Tan, do you want to carry on from Aftab's explanation or discussion about the cost and the latency and the reliability, maybe from your perspective as an ISP?
Yes, I have a video platform in 2022. The cost is about to the CDN. I have to host the server in the mobile operator to do the video platform because the content is especially where the user is. Nowadays the changes is equipment cost. The cost of equipment in hosting in the premises of the operator is transmission is more cheaper right now. So that is the reason most of the content and the CDN provider, they host in the one area like the ISP member, and that they only need to have a port, and then they can provide all of the mobile operator and also the ISP. So that is the cost factor. They can reduce the operational cost of they have to manage the few nodes. If not, they have to manage the many nodes of the mobile operator ISP, and then every closer to the user. So nowadays they host only in the selected like the beginners, Google verified peer partner. I'm the second batch of the Google verified peer partners or begin member. So I have a good experience. I got the very closer to my user to the Google. So that is what we can do is we can reduce the cost of the transit to the international transit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Marc, your perspective?
Well, maybe something we haven't talked about in some way is where the content is, but most of the content moved to cloud providers, Google, Amazon, or Azure, and Oracle. What does it mean? Those guys have already their own fibers out of the public space, interconnecting their own data center with higher speed and so. I was running an internet exchange. I'm still part of the UX community. A few years back, we had a big discussion. We're still ongoing. Is the traffic is growing faster on this side than in the public side, at the peering side. When we see the traffic growing in the internet exchanges, it's still growing. It's growing fast, slower than the rest of the cloud provider traffic, who is not anymore public. When you move your applications, everything's in the cloud providers, and I told you, yeah, we can interconnect. You can have a circuit directly in one click to one location to another. You can reach with your own data. Everything's around the world, or staying in the same domain, GCP, AWS, whatever, and so. Well, yeah, they do connect for you to the peering points and internet exchanges, but here, that's something is a moving point. That's something was not seen and is very, very difficult to measure as well, to understand how much traffic there is into the data planes. I mean, by the traffic with the volume itself, we see this is a very, very difficult challenge for internet measurement, by the way, and then to understand where the volume of traffic exchange globally. But here, that's also internet exchange have a key role also to play when connecting the small data center to keep it different way of doing and using it with a different type of economic models, maybe, or inventing new way of getting local, but not owned by the hyperscalers that I mentioned.
Okay, so with that thought about the hyperscalers and the exchanges and how that content should be accessed, we have no time left. So, but I'm going to steal 5 minutes of your lunch, if I may. So each panel member, if you have 1 minute, just to give your concluding, we do have to give, yes. Give your concluding thoughts. If anybody from the audience would like a prize from Aftab, we need your excellent question as well. So I think we can try and do all that within 5 minutes. So first off, Anurag is trying to win a prize. So Anurag, if you would quickly ask your question. What I'll do is I'll ask the panel members, if when you do your concluding remarks, if you include Anurag's question in your comments, please.
Thanks, Philip. Anurag Bhatia from Hurricane Electric. I'll go back to Aftab's hypothetical scenario of creating a CDN. In that, of course, it would be cheaper to do it via IX, but you are making a very big assumption there, which is that you will get all the routes. If you don't get all the routes, and this is more true on the other side, may not be true on the receiving side. So if you're an ISP, sure, you will get the content routes because content largely would be peering openly, except the previous example. But if you're on the content side, you may actually not get the routes. And if you don't get the routes, it does not matter. You know, you can have connectivity at a cost of 1/100th price, but it just won't matter. You won't be able to push the bits. Isn't that true?
Who wants to start?
This will be a question.
So, yeah, thank you. So Aftab, yes. If you start, and then we just,
okay.
The other four panel members quickly comment.
No, that is absolutely true. There's no, there should be no confusion about that one. If you want to, for example, it depends upon where I want to provide my content to. So as a content provider, I need to look if how much eyeballs are there in that IXP. If it ticks all my boxes, no, then of course I have to go beyond that, go to at least 1 or 2 transit provider as well to reach the eyeballs I want to reach. So yeah, I mean, you cannot have only an IX. Yes, that is true. You need to, unless, as I said, unless you are in a situation where every ISP is pairing there and sharing all the routes, which is very, very, I think that happens in Japan only, nowhere else. where some ISPs will not go and peer on that fabric. But beyond that, they normally do. And that's why I was focusing on one thing, that in the region, IXPs are important. Irrespective of who they are, as I mentioned, we have multiple definitions of IXP, whether it's a community run, commercially operated and run by the government. If there is a peering fabric in your country or economy you are operating it, connect to that. Forget about who's running it. My personal bias is towards community run IXPs because they run it for the community. You have a perfect case of BPF2026. No other IXP is doing this event. Only BPF2026 is doing it, and you see that in every part of the world. A community-run IXP makes sure that they bring the community together. So that I have a personal bias towards. But yeah, I'd love to support the IXP in that sense.
One quick follow-up, if that's possible.
5 seconds.
Sure, 5 seconds. So Aftab, for the hypothetical CDN, if you are not able to send more than, say, 30-40% traffic out of IX, and for remaining 60% you end up in doing whatever private arrangements, would you still be at the IX? And if this number reduces further, if it's not 40%, if it's 20%, 10%, would you still be there? Where's the break even? Where would you say, if I have to anyway have separate arrangements outside of IX, I would not, why bother with IX in that case?
Well, then that is not an IXP. That's masqueraded as a transit provider. In case of Indonesia, where you have, as per the numbers we have seen, is more than 100 IXPs. So if you are only getting 10% of the eyeballs by connecting to an IX, then technically it is not serving the purpose at all. So you're better off just going to the transit providers rather than going to the IX. But yes, at some point it has to grow. IXPs grow organically. I was saying, if go back in 2008 and 9 in Pakistan case, when we set up the ZPIX 0-point IXP, we only had probably 20 routes. So if everybody said, well, it doesn't make any sense to connect to that one, it never have grown to that level it is today. So yes, at some point you have to rely on, okay, 10% is good enough for me, I'll go and do the transit later, but it has to grow at some point. Yes. So yeah, I mean, it has to grow. It's a commercial decision ultimately. But as I said, I would always support a community-run IXP over a commercial-run IXP, even if it is giving me 10% of the routes.
Okay. So trying to stay on topic, just so concluding remarks. So do IXPs make the internet go faster? Just from the discussion we've had over the last hour and Romain's presentation, who wants to start? Marc, do you want to start? Just conclusion, 1 minute, please.
I may do shorter.
Or shorter.
Yes.
Give a prize for the shortest answer.
Yes, it does. Faster for all the spaces that we've been talking. Economically, all aspects that need to be faster for everyone and so. But then it has to go faster in some aspect. And then I mentioned cloud providers. I have that feeling. And to say that I'm feeling that they're actually stealing part of what we should control, and that's a kind of a considerations we need to take care as well. And that's just my conclusions, because this, keep it local, traffic, open, neutral, whatever it is, the utopian space we had at the beginning.
Yes, the user do not understand about how many BGP we have, how many PO we have. They only interesting about they expected about how user experience. So my conclusion is not only internet is faster, our internet should be smarter for user.
Yes, I would recommend that connect to the IXP as much as you can, and only keep only one transit, and that's enough for any academic institute.
Okay. Aftab, do you want any final word before
the only way we can help the ecosystem is supporting the IXP ecosystem, I would say. That is my final say. And just want to add one thing, since we only have one question, the other gift is going to the PKNX Secretariat, and they will do a lucky draw. I don't know if Nan can do that, but that is gonna happen. So since you did not ask any question, it's going to go through that one. But yeah, I would say, please keep supporting the IXP ecosystem. There are too many questions, there are too many things, but one thing, as I said, what we have learned in all these probably 30 years of Philip's career, or 15 plus of my career, that is the building block of the ecosystem. You cannot grow without that building block. You can question how it is run or how it is supporting the ecosystem, but it is the building block of the ecosystem. So we can debate on that, but start supporting that.
Thanks, Aftab. Romain, any final comment you want to make?
10 seconds then. Well, I think, yeah, IXPs are, because they are community-based, I think we all have a role to play. And even though I'm not running a network, I hope that I can do some more measurements and help people develop in where IXP are needed. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the 5 panel members for their contribution to this panel discussion. As I was saying at the start, I think it was a pretty hard topic to try and address. We could have talked all day quite easily because there's so much we could have covered. But thank you all very much for your different perspectives. I hope that's a lot of possibility for lunchtime conversations as well. And this afternoon also, if you wish to discuss more with the panel members, please feel free to talk with them. I'm sure they'll be happy to discuss, argue, whatever, for the rest of the day. And with that, thank you, and I'll hand back to our MC, Koen Point.
Thank you very much, our moderator and panelists, for this lively discussion on IXPs and internet speed. Before we continue, we have some gifts for our panelists and moderator, including also Romain. Even though you're in Tokyo, I have been informed by our organizing committee that we'll find a way to send a gift to you. But I have an idea. If IXPs make internet faster, you can get your plane ticket faster, fly here 6 hours, and join us for the evening beer and cocktail. Right? You never know. Okay, so at this time, I would like to invite Professor Kanchana Kanchanasud, Vice Chairman of the THNIC Foundation, to once again come up on stage and present tokens of appreciation to our distinguished speakers from this session. And it will be in order. Number 1, Marc Bruyere, Aftab Siddiqui, Viraphan Samadi, and Htwe, because the gifts have to match sizes. And once again, thank you to all of you, our lovely participants, for your time, energy, and engagement. This morning, we've been exchanging packets and ideas. Now it's time to exchange recommendations on which Thai dishes are worth going back for a second round. So as your stomachs may now know, it's almost 1 p.m. It's time for our networking lunch.